Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 9 o'clock. It is Thursday, May the 7th, 2015. Welcome to the May meeting of the Riverfront Design Committee. First item on the agenda is roll call, please.
Paul Dedman.
Present.
Anthony Black.
Here.
Brian Doherty.
Here.
Scott Howard.
Here.
John Joyce.
Here.
Don Kasparite. Jillian Robles. Richie Splitt. And David Yost. You have quorum.
Thank you very much. Item 2 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was on April the 2nd of this year. The minutes were in your packet. Does anyone have any questions, changes? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Mr. Joyce.
Second.
Second by Mr. Blatt. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. I'm going to move up item 7A under other business to where it is on the docket right now. We have with us Mr. Kenneth Dennis. Kenny Dennis, would you please stand, please? For those of you who weren't here or have not been here before, Kenny was with us on this committee from 2008 until earlier this year. And we would like to adopt a resolution recognizing his service on this committee. And with your approval, I will read it. A resolution of the Riverfront Design Committee of the City of Oklahoma City acknowledging Kenneth Dennis for his valuable service and dedication to the Riverfront Design Committee. Whereas Kenneth Dennis has faithfully devoted his time and expertise to serve the citizens of Oklahoma City as a Riverfront Design Committee member from December 2008 until March 2015, and whereas the committee has benefited greatly from Kenneth Dennis's proficient skill and expertise as an architect, and whereas Kenneth Dennis has routinely contributed to the committee through his comprehensive knowledge and adept analysis of architectural design, historical preservation, and aesthetic sensibility, and whereas Kenneth Dennis has demonstrated uncommon dedication to the committee through his methodical attention to detail and earnest regard for the applicable standards and guidelines in the consideration of projects presented to the committee, and whereas Kenneth Dennis' participation in committee deliberations has always been characterized by a steadfast and constant perseverance to promote the revitalization and enhancement of the Riverfront Design District subject to the committee review, and whereas Kenneth Dennis has consistently treated applicants, citizens, fellow committee members, and staff with respect and courtesy, and whereas Kenneth Dennis's sincerity, collaborative spirit, and compassionate nature has served the community well in resolving conflicts and offering sound technical and creative advice to applicants, now therefore be it resolved that the Riverfront Design Committee hereby respectfully commends Kenneth Dennis for his outstanding years of service to the Riverfront Design Committee of the City of Oklahoma City, adopted by the Riverfront Design Committee of the City of Oklahoma City on the 7th day of May 2015. Thank you, sir. May we have a motion, please, for approval of this? Second. Moved by Mr. Yost, seconded by Mr. Doherty. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you, sir. We will be giving you your signed certificate when we get all of our people to sign. But thank you for all you've done. It's good having you with us.
Very welcome.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, cases withdrawn, there are none. Item 4, continuance requests, there are none. Item 5, consent docket 5A, item SRCA-15 00008 at 1000 South High Avenue. Comments?
Sorry, it was on the consent docket. I just blanked out on that. We have a request for demolition in adjacent to the waterway for a warehouse structure. The applicant is here if you do have questions. The only issue staff looked at is the requirement to maintain the historic structures, but the survey that was done in the city did not go south of the river. Therefore, this structure wasn't listed, and it's the opinion of staff it would not have been considered a contributing structure in a historic area at all, based on the type of structure it is and the condition that it's in. And the staff is, based on the information that we provided in the staff report, recommending approval of this. request.
Is the applicant here by any chance?
Yes, he is here.
Do you have any comments?
No, sir. No comments at all.
Okay, could you come forward, please, and state your name, just so... Yes.
It's on consent docket, so if there's going to be discussion, somebody needs to move to pull it off.
Oh,
Pull it off
okay.
consent docket.
Okay. So you don't need to say anything, I guess, if that's...
Well, I am Don Stanton. I'm with Tolka Oils, and I have no comments.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions, comments? Otherwise, we'll entertain a motion.
I'll move for approval.
Moved by Mr. Blatt, seconded by Mr. Howard. All those in favor? Motion approved.
Very good.
Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 6A, cases for individual consideration. Item SRCA-15-00007 at 1701 Southwestern Avenue. Good morning. Please
Morning,
state
Mr.
your
Chairman.
name for the record.
Yeah, Blair Humphreys, 1222 Northwest 20th Street, Oklahoma City, and glad to be here this morning.
It's nice to have you here. Do you have any comments other than what's in the application?
I think the application speaks for itself. We did the preview presentation a few months back, and we just continue to work diligently. I would like to especially thank the staff, Lisa Chronister and Laura Griggs, as well as Pat Downs with the River Redevelopment Authority. They've been exceptional to work with, been extremely helpful, and happy to answer any questions or give you any updates on matters that you might find important.
Any comments on behalf of the city?
Just to reiterate, the information provided in your packet, we do have a couple of conditions at the very final part of the report. That's part of our recommendation of approval. There are several different items included in this application. Two of them that we needed to add as a condition would be that approval is required from the Director of Public Works for the number of parking spaces to be provided and striped. We do point out in here there's ample paved room out there for numerous vehicles, as well as we recommend the final mural graphic be submitted to the planning staff for approval. It is scheduled to go before the Arts Commission. It just has not, or it is scheduled, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The scheduled date for the Arts Commission has been pushed from May to June.
Okay.
So,
We indicate it was going in May, but it's going to the Arts Commission in June, and so we recommend that it just come back to staff for approval of the graphic content.
Okay. Does anyone on the committee have any questions?
I have one question. I think it's exciting to see something going out here. I do have a question, me being the plant guy. I saw where you're proposing some elms and wood planter boxes.
Yep.
Okay, are those temporary or?
They're intended to provide flexibility so that we could relocate them on site. We intend to evolve the plaza in terms of the materials and permanence of the design over time, and so we didn't want to get fully locked in to all of our plantings until we had more specific plans as to what type of development will occur on the edges and what the appropriate species might be related to that.
Okay.
So that's the idea. I will always take some free expertise, though, if you have any ideas for that.
I was just curious.
Okay.
Thanks.
I've got a comment. One of the things that the staff mentioned was the wood siding and maybe that not being something that we would typically like to see, but then there was a comment made about that it kind of seemed in keeping with the outdoor atmosphere and that sort of thing. I'm kind of totally good with that. But then there's another thing about, kind of the wood siding, wood construction, is that you kind of think of it as not being as, not holding up to traffic and things like that. So I just was wanting to hear you kind of address that as to, the type of wood we were using and just, its kind of ability to hold up to the type of kind of traffic it's going to see.
Yeah, so the wood siding, it's used in two instances. One is on a shade or picnic pavilion, and which will have a roof structure. We don't expect that it will get a significant amount of wear and tear. It's not conditioned space. But that building potentially could become more permanent over time as we upgrade it, or it has the flexibility not to. The more permanent building is the amenities hangar, which will house all the electrical, the ticketing, the bathrooms. It'll have a metal surface underneath that that'll provide for its continued wear and maintenance. The wood is really meant to soften that and to provide an aesthetic that we think is in keeping with the intention for the space today. We really expect, as you can see in the plan, that it's meant to be a destination park today with a fairly significant Ferris wheel, but the goal is for it to really transition into an urban plaza over time. And so trying to figure out what was the right place. We didn't want to have buildings that felt like they should be in the middle of a city today and stick out in an odd way during its use period over the next 3 to 5 years, but buildings that could transition. And so that's where we've landed on, and that's where we've landed on the wood as the aesthetic. But we'll be doing everything we can to make sure that the buildings are maintained at a high level, that the aesthetic continues to be something that people find not only appropriate but also beautiful, and that this continues to be a place that the city's proud of and that we're proud of and attracts many visitors. So, Mr. Yost.
Yeah, so Blair, I had a question about that wood cladding on page 5. It looks like that the boards are perpendicular to the surface. Is that right?
The boards are, depending on how you mean by that, the boards are a cladding.
Wall, are they, the length is perpendicular to the vertical surface?
My understanding of it is it's a 6 by.
But the reason I'm asking that is when something is symmetrically juxtaposed like that, if there's any warpage at all, it really stands out like a sore thumb. Is there any likelihood that there'll be warpage of something that's standing out like that from the wall that's bound to be wet a lot of the time?
I'll take up on this one.
Hi, I'm Ryan Smith, Smith Design Company, 1120 Larchmont Lane.
I really can't hear you. Can you speak up a little bit?
Sure. Ryan Smith, 1120 Larchmont Lane. My wife and I are the architects and contractors for this project. And to answer the question more specifically with regard to the warping, there will be plenty of intermediate nailing points for the wood to be supported off of to minimize the amount of warping, which would be typical of any horizontally oriented wood siding. And the species is something that we need to be selective about in designating for that building to make sure that it withstands weather and temperature and has a longevity that we and Blair also expect. And I don't know if there was a second part of that question. I couldn't hear too well. So,
Ryan, 6 inches is vertical?
correct.
Okay. I think that was your question, was you want to make sure the 6 inches is up and down.
No, it's mounted flush.
Okay, I understand what you're asking. The orientation of the board itself is horizontal by its length and vertical by its width. So if the pictures are not clear, we'd be happy to provide some more material, but we do not intend to install it in the example that you gave of what would be an unsupported condition.
I have 2 questions while you're up. I like everything that I see. I like the wood and the metal. I like the large OKC. With respect to the pine, I understand what you're saying. I saw number 2, pressure treated. Your intermittent fastening, I think, answered the majority of my question. Is there going to be a clear sealer on it or anything? Are you going to allow it to weather to gray? Or is there a current intent for that wood?
At this point, we're going to completely encapsulate it in paint.
Okay. And then the second question is with respect to your...
Paint on the picnic pavilion.
Correct.
Yeah, on the amenities On the amenities hanger, the thought has been that we would attempt to maintain the natural aesthetic, so with a silver.
So a natural weathering.
Like you said, allowing it to silver.
Okay. On your amenities wall, or not your amenities wall, your feature wall with the containers, it says that you're going to allow that to be in its natural finish. Is that a finish that is going to be allowed to corrode? Is it a finish that has current corrosion that's going to be sealed to maintain how it looks today is going to look the same in years to come? I think all of the little nooks and crannies in that are going to be a maintenance issue unless there's some kind of protection. And if the protection is applied, I think it's going to have to be applied on some kind of continuous basis so that it doesn't start to accelerate and bleed onto what it's going to rest on.
Just so happens he's one of the few shipping container experts in town, so I'll let Brian take that.
I think that it is a continual maintenance situation where when those spots do start to appear, that it's something that Blair needs to have property management take care of.
Okay.
Initially, the shipping containers do have rust-inhibitive primer. They are factory-made, and they do come to us in good condition, and the ones that are in unacceptable condition, obviously, we pass on. So we do hand-select the ones that don't have rust, that don't have dents, that are as presentable as possible. But you're right, over time, things can happen, and that's part of a maintenance program.
And the visible wall exposed to the east where the mural will be prepped and primed. So before the artists show up on site, it'll have all the preparation necessary to ensure that the mural will stick and be easy to maintain for years to come.
Okay. Thank you both.
Sure. Thanks, Ryan.
Any other questions from the committee?
I just had a couple of questions, and I think it's more dealing with, one is, I think there's a typo on our report on page 4 or 5 where it says the mural's 120 foot by 25 inches. It should be 25 foot. I presume it's 25 foot by 125 foot.
I apologize, that was...
No, I just thought we just noted on there that that's where it is. And, probably being especially sensitive to the way murals have been handled and all in the city and evolved just because of what we've dealt with over, especially early on at Community Foundation with the womb and how that was all going. How does the process for that happen?
Typically, mural, there are specific provisions in the ordinance covering murals, and it's actually, you go to the sign code, and murals are, the process is listed out. In practice, we usually, it goes to Arts Commission, and they meet monthly, and they make a recommendation. Arts Commission is reviewing for artistic integrity, and the capacity of the artist to do the work. Longevity, murals are assumed to be somewhat temporary. Arts Commission usually considers them to be about a 7-year lifespan, but Arts Commission does ask for a maintenance plan to keep it going for at least that long. So after Arts Commission makes a recommendation, then we bring it to the committees or staff as applicable and ask the committee to approve it based on how it reinforces the character of the district, because that's what the committee is here to do. As for the womb, they got their original mural did go through the process correctly, but then they made a change last year that was not approved, was not permitted, and was not approved, and that was the consequence.
No, and I just think just being sensitive to it, and I guess part of me says is, are we setting a precedent where the mural doesn't come back to us? I don't think there's going to be anything that's inappropriate or anything. It's just kind of, should it come back to this body or should it just go on to planning? I think that was the question. It's going to be big. It's big out there.
It is going to be big. Typically, on some level, murals are eligible for staff approval a lot of the times, but they're usually so high profile that we choose to bring them to the committee. On this one, we were trying to help the applicant get their approvals to move forward without having to come back, because at the timing with Arts Commission approval and our meeting schedule, but obviously if the committee wants to see it, that's...
There's a couple
in the
things I could
purview.
add that might help give you assurances that you need. One, we're not hiring Wayne Coyne to do the mural, so that should be that should be one thing. We've actually come to an agreement with Aaron Cooper and Amanda Bradway, who did the award-winning mural on Western Avenue, and they're 3704, which is the, if you're not familiar with it, it's on the north side of the old Bruno's furniture shop and is quite wonderful. They've put together an initial concept. It just simply, in terms of our filing deadlines, wasn't in position where we could make it part of it. So they have a sketch, and they're getting ready to file for the next Arts Commission meeting date, which will put us in June. So I would say that if perhaps we plan to go forward with staff report, and if you see the mural once it's announced and there's a red flag, then we'd be happy to bring it back. I think you'll like it, though. I think it's...
Yeah, I want to echo what our preliminary plan was. Let's see if it's staff approvable. But yeah, if I'm not 101% convinced, I'm going to take it to the committee.
And I was seriously just thinking precedent, and if somebody comes in after this and says, but you didn't win, it just went back to staff approval, then I just think that, this is the body that's supposed to look at it. So, however, on that, I did have a couple of questions. A couple of the plant material, like Scott says, are marginal. I mean, Deodar cedar, we wiped them out in 83, we wiped them out in 87, we wiped a lot of them out this last year. So, and again, one of the issues that we've had around the city is people will put them in, get a lot of points for them, and then they go and then they don't replace them. So I think, it would be nice to have some assurance that if they all go down next winter and all, that you all will come back in. It'll probably be it might be cedar or Lebanon instead that gives you the same look but is less. But that and the arborvitae, they're starting to kind of come back up to the surface. But, we already have a number of cultivars that have crashed and burned, so it's kind of like where we are. Theoretically, it works because it's a windscreen, but then we can't control the weather. So,
Gotcha. The one commitment I can make is that our landscaping plan is not to get points for approval. It's to create a place where people want to be. And, if the species died out and we decided to recreate a place where people want to be, that another species was needed for that, we're going to continue to landscape it to create an environment and an aesthetic that's something that the entire community can be proud of, but it's certainly something that sets the table for an entire neighborhood in terms of what the quality and expectations and excellence is going to be. So I hope I can prove it through our actions, but for now I just tell you that's our commitment.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, based upon all these comments, anyone care to make a motion?
I move for approval of the application subject to the two conditions that were mentioned in the staff report, the Director of Public Works approving the number of parking spaces and the striping, and the final mural graphic being submitted to the planning staff.
Okay, motion by Mr. Yost. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Blatt. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Good luck.
Thank you all.
Looking forward to seeing it and riding on it.
Look forward to having you down for a ride.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is item 8, Communications. 8A, Administrative Approval Report. There are 3 items, SRCA-15-0004 at 405 Southwest 15th Street. Item 2 is SRCA 00005 at 401 Southwest 401. Sorry, the first one was 405. This is 401 Southwest 15th Street. And item number 3, SRCA-150006 at 415 Southwest 15th Street. Anyone have any comments on those? Next, item B, Planning Commission. For your information, proposed ordinance amendments of the Zoning and Planning Code, Chapter 59 of the Oklahoma City Municipal Code 2010, pertaining to the demolition of structures in design districts will be heard on May the 28th, 2015 by the Urban Development Committee of the Planning Commission. Item C, Planning Department staff. Anyone have any comments?
I don't. Do you, Laura? Nope.
Item D, comments from committee members? Anyone? Item E, our next meeting date will be Thursday, June the 4th. Do we have anything on the agenda? No? Okay. All right, unless there's anything else, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Blatt, seconded by Mr. Yost. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
I need you to sign in, and I need you to sign him in, because I didn't realize,
Oh,
is that
because you
for the
talked.
record? Yeah.